The night of my full revenge looked like a suburban fairy tale sponsored by Costco and petty rage. String lights zigzagged over the backyard. A DJ I found on Craigslist looped a top 40 playlist, and a 7-pound sheet cake, half pink, half blue, waited next to a confetti cannon I'd relabeled Truth Reveal. And neighbors drifted in with lawn chairs like it was 4th of July. My family stood by the grill. Her family clustered near the photo backdrop with the cursive sign that said, "Our Little Miracle," and if that isn't irony in a script, I don't know what is. I moved like a wedding planner with a grudge, shaking hands, thanking folks for coming, talking about blessings and family, while my smartwatch reminded me to breathe. People think revenge is flames and shouting. Real revenge, the American kind you learn from HOA disputes in small claims court, is hospitality with a razor blade hidden in the napkin. I had a rented projector pointed at the fence, a slideshow labeled Life Highlights. The first 5 slides were harmless nostalgia. Our first apartment, the road trip to Santa Fe, the dog dressed like a taco for Halloween. Just long enough to lull everyone into that soft, warm moss of sentimental memory where betrayal can slide in like a copperhead. I told the DJ to kill the music, handed my wife the remote, kissed her forehead like a gentleman raised by Sunday potlucks, and took my place beside the confetti cannon. She smiled at me with a porcelain grin I'd come to recognize as the mask of toxic love, the kind that says, "I'll keep you safe while I vacuum your bones." My college roommate, yes, that roommate, hovered at the edge of the crowd, invited by me, which told you 2 things. 1, I was done pretending. 2, I was about to feed him to public opinion, the hungriest animal in America, after a Little League snack bar. The slideshow changed. The fence glowed with dates and blurry photos, then crisp screenshots, an iMessage thread, first inside jokes, then late-night hearts, then a blurred ultrasound she had saved not to our family album, but to a hidden folder named Receipts. My attorney later said that alone deserved an award. Gasps hopped around the yard like popcorn. I didn't speak. The projector did the sermon. Venmo payments with his dumb pizza emojis. A calendar invite titled Prenatal, declined by me because I was never invited, accepted by him. DoorDash orders to his address on nights she told me she was staying late for Q3 decks. And then, because every American story needs a moment that explains itself in a single frame, the paternity report from a clinic in a strip mall wedged between a vape shop and a nail salon. 99.9% is not a number. It's a guillotine. My mother covered her mouth. Her mother whispered a prayer that got lost somewhere above the inflatable arch. My wife went ash white, then red, then the color of apology you only see in people who finally realize the floor beneath them is not a floor, but an elevator to the basement. My roommate looked at the grass like he expected it to tell him how to time travel. "Babe," she started, but I pulled the cord on the confetti cannon, and the sky filled with black and white strips that I'd had printed with the words, "Not the father," and, for him, "Congrats, Roomie." It was petty in a way that made my bones feel aired out. Somewhere a neighbor said, "Oh my God." And somewhere else a neighbor said, "Finally," because the neighborhood sees more than your blackout curtains think. Revenge in that moment wasn't screaming or throwing plates. It was clarity with a frosting border. It was me standing in my own backyard, on my own grass, under my own lights, returning to myself in front of witnesses. I let the silence work the way a good closing argument doesn't need a mic drop. When I spoke, it was the voice of a man who'd studied infidelity like a case file and decided to quit the city of denial. "Thank you all for celebrating our miracle," I said, nodding to the projector. Turns out the miracle belongs to someone else. Cake's still good. I stepped away so people could do what people do. Look down, look away, whisper the words cheating and betrayal like they were reading from a hymnal. The DJ, God bless him, played nothing. Even the crickets held their breath. That was part 1. Hospitality sharpened to a point, A family gathering turned courtroom, a neighborhood myth ending with a simple verdict. And if you think that's cold, wait until I tell you about the dinner where I caught them. Because every revenge story has a prequel, and mine tastes like overcooked steak and a phone set to Do Not Disturb. It was a Tuesday night, with the weather app lying about pleasant, and the smoke alarm chirping every 90 seconds like a metronome for bad decisions. The kind of domestic symphony that makes you either grateful or suspicious, depending on your filter. I was at the stove pretending to be a Food Network contestant, pan-searing steaks I'd oversalted, coaxing asparagus to not die in the skillet, channeling family man energy while she chopped salad with the same concentration she used on her emoji. Usage with my college roommate. We were on our third attempt at normal that week. Candles, jazz, a truce signed in olive oil, and I wanted so badly to believe we were just glitching, like a Wi-Fi router that needs a reboot. The dog lay under the table like an emotional support jury. She set plates, smiled with that Pinterest brightness, and my gut did that elevator drop you get when a roller coaster crests. The phone stayed face down. The phone always stayed face down now, like it was ashamed to meet my eye. I poured 2 glasses of mid-shelf Cabernet and pretended it smelled like our first date, not like the last days of Rome. We sat. I asked about her day. She said words like deck and sink and headwinds, corporate weather that never forecasts betrayal. The smoke alarm chirped again like a ghost of better batteries. When the doorbell rang, it felt like comic relief. I wasn't expecting a package, but America runs on packages, so I opened the door and found a paper bag with the smile of every rushed errand. DoorDash. Wrong address, I thought. Except the receipt said his name, my roommate's name, along with a note to leave at the porch, if we don't answer because she's in the shower. There are moments when the universe stops being subtle and starts writing in Sharpie. I stood there with the bag like a game show host. "Babe," I called, "did you order something?" She got up too fast, that panic anyone who's ever told a lie recognizes from a mile out. "Oh, weird. Must be the neighbors," she said, reaching for the bag. I held it away like a dad taking a marker from a toddler. And then, because theater requires props, my TV lit up with AirPlay. Her phone had auto-connected to the living room. It wasn't a movie. It was a FaceTime ring with his tired face filling my screen, the kind of face that says, "Hey mama, you good?" Which he actually said, and I, an American taxpayer with a grill and a mortgage and a fantasy football team, learned the word hollow from the inside. She lunged for the phone. I stepped back like a point guard keeping the ball away. And somewhere in that ballet, the call connected, and he said, "Did you tell him about the appointment?" The steak hissed, the smoke alarm chirped, the dog stood up, and the room shrank until all that existed was the word appointment sitting on the table like a loaded fork. I remember my voice coming out steady, like the guy in the bomb squad who cuts wires for a living. "What appointment?" I asked, and she opened and closed like a broken app, searching for a password to reality. And then she told me, not all of it, but enough, that there had been a complication at the clinic, and that she had panicked, and that she had made a mistake, which, in the hard currency of marriage, translates to a sequence of choices you make with intention while your spouse salts asparagus. The world went gray in the elegant way shock wraps you in a hotel bathrobe. I put the phone on speaker. He tried to apologize with the earnestness of a man who still believed apologies are coupons for free passes. We sat down at the table like a family in a sitcom that has run too many seasons. I asked questions. She answered like testimony. It wasn't just cheating. It was a system. Lies scheduled like meetings, alibis tracked like steps on a fitness app. And because I am a son of this country, home of receipts and discovery, I didn't throw plates or storm out. I sliced my steak and listened. I made a mental list that began with attorney and ended with sleep. Somewhere in there, a thought that would eventually become the backyard reveal slid across my mind like a chess piece. If you're going to betray me using the ordinary, I'm going to expose you using the ordinary too. Dinner, a slideshow, confetti. Infidelity had come to my table dressed as routine. Revenge would go back to the neighborhood dressed as dessert. When the call ended, the room felt violently quiet, like we were the last two people in a mall after the lights shut off. She cried, a wet sound that used to undo me and now just watered the floor. I gathered the plates and said, "We'll talk in the morning." That was the night I learned some betrayal doesn't explode. It calcifies, it sets, and when it sets, you carve it. With a steak knife, with a calendar, with patience sharpened by humiliation. The next day I started gathering things that looked like nothing until you lay them out under a projector and they become everything. Back then, when roommate still meant late fees and shared ramen instead of the guy who took a sledgehammer to my family, we were freshman kings of the third floor of Jefferson Hall, carrying plastic crates of ambition up a staircase that smelled like laundry and late nights. He was the kind of friend who'd split his last beer and steal your fries. I was the kind who'd loan him my car and forget to ask for gas money. We built a brotherhood out of broken futons and football Sundays, out of wing nights and group projects, out of the naive belief that time turns classmates into uncles to your future kids. We graduated, moved on, and filed each other under lifers, the category that makes betrayal feel like physics failed. Years later, when my wife and I built our little suburban empire, mortgage, grill, matching mugs, he showed up for barbecues and birthdays with a grin and six-pack and stories about gigs that never quite worked out. I'm not dumb. I just believed the hallway photos on our staircase told a clear truth. This was my circle, this was my family, and anyone inside the circle was safe. But truth is a skittish animal. It spooks easy. It started with micro-oddities you'd laugh off if you didn't already know how these stories end. Her suddenly caring about indie bands he loved back in sophomore year, the way their jokes braided tighter than mine, the throwaway comments about nostalgia that felt too warm. I chalked it up to crossover culture. Friends share things. Family grows sideways. We're a community. Then came the missed calls, the "you'd hate this meeting" nights, the way the dog stared at her phone like he'd been deputized by Homeland Security. I built a conspiracy wall in my head I refused to pin anything to, because pinning things makes them real. Americans love a conspiracy not because it's wild, but because it puts chaos on a leash. When the dinner happened and the airplay betrayal turned my living room into a courtroom, I realized my conspiracy board was about to become an exhibit. I leaned in like a data analyst with trauma. I checked calendar invites and cloud backups. I remembered he'd borrowed my iPad the year before to show a deck. And suddenly, like a magician revealing the trick no one asked for, files replicated themselves in places they shouldn't be. I looked at security cam footage not for paranoia, but for patterns. Walks around the block that always took 47 minutes, Uber records that put her downtown near a clinic on the same mornings she told me she needed quiet time at a coffee shop. A part of me still loved her, or loved the story we wrote together and performed for friends, husband, wife, dog, backyard, holidays. And that part of me tried to narrate this as a misunderstanding. But misunderstandings don't generate paternity tests. Misunderstandings don't leave Venmo trails with baby bottle emojis. The day I found the ultrasound, I felt the world tilt, not melodramatically, just 1 degree, enough to make every picture on the wall hang crooked. That's the day my revenge stopped being an impulse and started being a plan. People like to say revenge is beneath you. That's sweet. Revenge, properly understood, is a way of telling the truth when the other side commits to lies. It's not about cruelty, it's about accounting. It's the math you do after betrayal spends your savings. I kept things normal as a disguise. We still went to Target. We still watched shows on the couch. I still fixed the loose cabinet door. She still texted with her phone angled away. Meanwhile, I was writing a script. Act 1, let the neighborhood see. Act 2, let the families know. Act 3, walk away clean. I found a lawyer with an eagle on his business card and a smile that said he collected secrets for a living. I found a therapist named Linda who kept a cactus on her desk and said sentences like, "You cannot control her story. You can only control yours," which I hated, and then wrote on a sticky note and stuck inside my wallet. I told no one else. Revenge needs quiet. The week before the backyard reveal, I invited my roommate over for the game, handed him a beer, and watched him look at my wife like he thought we were on different channels and I couldn't see his signal. I saw it. I took a breath and imagined a projector lighting up a fence. If that sounds theatrical, it was. America taught me that if you want people to understand your pain, you make it a show. So I bought a projector and a confetti cannon. I did the lighting myself. I rehearsed in the dark, and for the first time in months, slept. After the truth fell on my lawn like ticker tape from an ugly parade, after her mother took her aside and says God will forgive. But people take their time. After my roommate walked to his car with his shoulders caved in and the driver's seat of his future turned hot, the world did what it always does, kept going. The next morning the sun rose. The trash needed to go out. Coffee still brewed, the dog still needed a walk, and the group chat erupted the way group chats do when scandal feeds them better than brunch. My phone turned into a courtroom hallway. Lawyer, therapist, my sister, my best man from the wedding texting, "You good?" like a lifeline tossed from a dock. I was, in a way, I didn't expect. That's the thing about revenge that Hollywood sometimes gets right. When it's done, you feel light, not because you hurt them, but because you stopped carrying the weight of a fake story. We split the house like a battlefield rendered into a spreadsheet. She stayed with her mother for a while. He, it feels weird even typing his name, sent a message that could have been a template from a PR firm. I take full responsibility. I'm sorry for the pain I caused. I hope one day we can talk. I didn't answer. My attorney told me silence is a strategy. Linda told me silence is a boundary. I told myself silence was finally me choosing me. Papers were filed. Divorce is admin dressed as heartbreak. You initial here, 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 and circle words like marital property and petition, and somewhere in the margins you write betrayal, infidelity, cheating, toxic love, and then draw a box around the word family because that's the word that hurts most when it breaks. I wasn't trying to erase my past. I was trying to rescue my future from it. People asked if I'd do it differently, if revenge made me a villain in my own story. I told them I didn't burn anything down. I turned the lights on. And at night, when the house echoed, I'd catch myself narrating the whole thing like a parody of those true crime podcasts. In a quiet cul-de-sac, a man discovered his marriage was a group project and the extra credit went to his college roommate. I let myself laugh because laughter is a kind of medicine, and America sells a lot of medicines, but that one's free. There was a fantasy to it all, too, a sense that I'd stepped out of my body during the backyard reveal and watched from above like a drone shot, me below, the projector glowing, guests frozen mid-gasp, a confetti cloud that read, "Not the father," in monochrome rain. In that floating view, I saw a man closing a chapter without torching the library. Weeks later, I picked up new habits that had nothing to do with courtrooms. I learned to cook steaks without burning them. I learned the dog prefers the park with the big hill. I learned that a Saturday alone doesn't mean you're broken. It means you can hear yourself. I boxed up things that told the wrong story and kept the ones that told the right one. I sent the projector back. I kept the remote. People think revenge ends the moment the crowd goes home. Mine ended the first night I slept through, really slept, like a kid after a pool day. I dreamed of a road unfurling past state lines. No detours, no car following behind, no old roommate tailgating my peace. In the morning, I brewed coffee, took a long shower, and looked in the mirror for a very long time, like I was meeting an old friend at an airport. There's a version of me in another universe who stayed, who forgave, who tried to scotch tape our life back together. Because family is sacred, and the dog likes routine, and the Christmas lights were already bought. I'm not that man here. Here, I chose to believe that betrayal isn't the last word, that revenge, in its cleanest form, is the decision to stop starring in someone else's lie. If this sounds like an American sermon, maybe it is. We love comebacks. We clap for the guy who gets knocked flat and stands up with a better haircut. So, I stood up. I got the haircut. I changed the locks and the playlist. And when the mail finally came with the decree, I signed, closed the door, and took the dog to the good park. On the way home, my phone buzzed with a discount for confetti cannons. I laughed so hard, the dog jumped. Not today, I told the universe, not because I'm done with spectacle, but because I don't need it anymore. The truth is simpler than the show. And sometimes, here's the twist ending, it's enough.